Hey, Yelena, how's it
Hi,
going?
good to see you.
Hey, good to see you. We're so excited to have Yelena today to join us to talk about partner marketing. Partner marketing is like such an interesting topic, and not every company has it, but it's a critical part of go to market. So we're really excited to have Yelena today to talk about partner marketing. Yelena, do you want to introduce yourself and talk about why you're so passionate about partner marketing?
Sure, and thanks for having me, Holly. And I remember our conversation in a cafe, maybe at this point half a year ago. We were talking about partner marketing. You're like, "What is that? I don't understand." So I'm excited that we get to talk and dive deeper into that today. For everyone that's joined, hi, my name is Yelena Kozlova. Most recently, I led marketing and communications at Singterra. And before that, I led marketing at Guideline through their hyper growth stage. I'm passionate about partner marketing because I think it's like sort of the stepchild of marketing, but it is such a key part of everybody's go-to-market strategy, or I think it should be. So I'm excited to really dive in because it's a lever that you can leverage and really skyrocket your growth.
Mm-hmm. All right. So what is partner marketing anyway?
So I think you said product marketing, right?
Oh, no, partner marketing. Sorry. Yeah. See,
But I think
that's
that's actually, no, but that's great because I think my take on partner marketing is it is part of product marketing. At the core, partner marketing is leveraging your customers, your target audience's ecosystem, understanding how they buy. And then within that ecosystem, there are partners that influence their behavior. I'll give some concrete examples to make it more clear, but essentially those folks, entities, associations influence how your buyers buy. They never buy in a vacuum. And so if you can get to them through all of those spokes that influence their behavior, you're actually going to have a more primed customer and a much more efficient sales cycle. You could trick your sales cycle, you could get your customers faster, and then you can deliver what we all want as marketers, which is growth and revenue.
This is super interesting because like I've worked at a company where there is a partner marketing function or partner marketing person. And then there's also business development, and there's also like a co-marketing as a work stream. So what's the difference between partner marketing or partnership or business development, and where do they typically sit within the organization?
Yeah, so what you're describing is perhaps a more mature organization where there are multiple different streams. Let me actually give you a concrete example of how we built it at Guideline. And for me in my career, although when I was at Nickelodeon Kids and Family, we had clearly a very large organization, so we had more of these separate streams. But at Guideline, when I joined, I took over the marketing team, which was just a couple of people. We didn't have clear delineation of partner marketers. I took over and focused more on product marketing at first. And then we had strategic partnerships team. At the time, it was 2 people. And that was also a very newly created team. And that'll help highlight the distinction. So strategic partnerships team, sometimes they can be called business development. They're going to go out to those identified partners within your customer's ecosystem, and they're going to make contracts with them. They're going to talk about, hey, if you have a customer over here. So I'll give a concrete example. In the case of Guideline, Guideline is a leading retirement provider for small and medium-sized businesses. And retirement is essentially a tax shelter, and it happens, you do a retirement deduction every time you run payroll. So there you go. If you think about your end customer, the CEO, and if it's a small business, their accountant, every time the accountant runs payroll and does the deductions for the CEO and everybody else in that small business, for retirement, they run payroll. So naturally, the partner would be that payroll organization. So now the strategic partnerships team, they know that this is the partner ecosystem. They will go to all the different payroll providers and they will create contracts with them. And they will say like, hey, if we advertise, and you can discuss exactly how you advertise and connect with those payroll providers. If we connect with your payroll provider, every time the payroll customer signs to have a retirement through Guideline as part of their services, the payroll provider ends up getting some kind of revenue stream, right? And they create that contract. So they discuss the terms, they discuss how everything will work, and they would be the keeper of that relationship, that partnership. Marketing comes in to deliver all the marketing to the end customers. And in the case of Guideline, we actually had API connections directly into the payroll provider. And in the case, I worked directly on the Intuit partnership, on all of them, but launched the Intuit partnership. In the case of that, the API connection would create a data stream between Guideline and Intuit. And we had a tab within the Intuit product. So you run payroll, you get a pop-up that says, hey, have you thought about retirement deductions? You click on that, you go to a landing page that explains Guideline as the preferred provider of retirement. And it says like, hey, here are the benefits of retirement. You click on that and you directly go into a funnel to sign up for Guideline. Now that's incredibly powerful because now as a lead, you are primed by the entity with which you already have a relationship. You already trust your payroll provider. Now they're saying, hey, here's a retirement benefit. You go through that and you can quickly sign up. And so there is an example of how a customer, like a shared benefit, and how a customer can go through that funnel directly. But to go back to your original question, Holly, the strategic partnerships team would create that contract and they would kind of troubleshoot, work within all the different organizations within Intuit to make sure that the partnership is sound and everything's working and the API connections are doing their thing. They'll go out to engineering, they'll make sure, hey guys, are you doing what you need to be doing so everything works? And marketing, and in that case, I was working on that directly. We did research together with the Intuit product marketing team to understand the shared value proposition, to understand the Intuit customers by segment, how they view retirement, what they need out of it, what are the objections to potentially get it, why would they want it, and then we would create shared value propositions in those pop-ups on the little in-product page within Intuit, and then eventually through that entire funnel. And we create a customized funnel for Intuit and actually for all the payroll providers eventually to make sure that you have this experience, then it's co-branded, and it's a seamless process to sign up.
That's super interesting example. Actually, this almost covers the entire life cycle of a partnership, right? Like from the very beginning. Like identifying who to work with, and then how do you get all the cross-functional teams together, identifying like a value props and organize the work streams, and then there's a user experience side of things. It's probably afterwards is like there's a reconciliation process. So I'm curious, like at the very beginning, right, from identifying who could be our partners, is there any like frameworks or mental models? Do you do like a big brainstorming on like horizontal, vertical, or like how do you actually identify who can be the partners, and how do you prioritize who to work with?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example from an earlier stage company in my career. So most recently I was over at Singterra, and I'll kind of walk you through my process as a core product marketer for identifying that. But companies can do all kinds of different things. It just depends which of the teams ends up leading it. And of course, as a marketer, and for all the marketers that are listening, I would encourage every product marketer to go through this exercise. And as they're leading the go-to-market strategy, really to think about partner marketing as their very high leveraged channel for really efficient and effective user growth. So at Singterra, when I came in, what I did was spend a lot of hours listening to gong calls. Of course, you want to understand what your sales team is doing, how they're selling your product, and what comes up. And then what I did was, as I was thinking about the ecosystem, and Singterra is a platform for embedded banking. Essentially, they're kind of a layer, an API layer on which companies can build either additional products. They can offer banking, including checking accounts and charge cards and such, or they can enable net new companies to build, a credit card or a banking system on top of their API. But essentially, listening through the gong calls, I started to type in all the different keywords in the ecosystem that I could think about in the financial ecosystem. And when I typed in payroll, and of course, given the example I just gave you earlier, I came from that background and worked a lot with Gusto and Intuit. When I typed in payroll, I noticed that it came up a lot in all the different gong conversations. What happened was quite a few prospects that would come into the Singterra pipeline would say, hey, I'm thinking about building banking and payroll products. Do you guys offer both of those? And Singterra didn't. Singterra focused on banking, and rightfully so, because banking alone is something really hard to offer. Financial products are really deep, and as they should be, because you're dealing with people's money. But Gusto does offer embedded banking. There are a couple of other companies as well. So as I was seeing payroll pop up in the customer consideration set, I went to the Gusto embedded team and said, hey guys, can we partner together and just to start the partnership, can we partner together on an event or a white paper or something? And compliance is really a hot button topic in the industry of fintech, as it should be, because we're dealing with people's money, and we want to make sure we're compliant. So we agreed to actually do an event and showcase how you build for compliance all the different financial products. For Singterra as an earlier stage company, this was a really big opportunity because, Singterra as a company is not well known, but Gusto is an established brand. And so in a sense, that situation allows the co-marketing of that allows for Singterra to lift their brand up and to be associated with Gusto and to talk about things that are really important in the industry. So that's an example of partner marketing at early stages. Generally, a larger company will not jump into a deep API integration with a smaller company to start. They'll want to test the waters. They'll want to see like, hey, can we do an event together? Let's see how that goes. Does a smaller company bring what they want to the table? Are they buttoned up? Can they execute? Can they deliver the content? In the case of Guideline, Intuit and the experience that I described also didn't happen overnight. They ran a pilot for about a year, looked at how well those API integrations are doing, looked at customer NPS scores, looked at how Guideline was servicing those customers, saw that everything was great, and then continued negotiation with the strategic partnership team and eventually signed a contract to then leverage that partnership and all that API and everything that was built to their entire audience, segment by segment, because of course they're a much larger company and they want to kind of like test and roll things out.
That's just such a great example. It's like it's a phased approach to partnership. My mental model for partnership, the type, there's so many different kinds of partnership, is like the three big buckets in my mind is one is technology partners, where you have APIs and like integrations on the technical side, and two is probably like a co-marketing partners where you do webinars, you do promotions, marketing campaigns together, and three is probably distribution partners where it's like reseller, referral, and commercial sort of distribution partners. What is your mental model in thinking about different categories of partners?
Well, I think through my experience, I agree with your mental models wholeheartedly. And before I joined Guideline, I actually bucketed them into the same mental models. However, the partnership work that I did at Guideline cross-referenced all three. And eventually I started partner marketing as a PMM. And for a while I was the only PMM. Then I started to slowly train up folks, but because, early stage company, I joined Guideline right at the tail end of B into Series C. And the team was quite small. It was just 2 people, including, and then myself. So 3 people total. And I ran partner marketing myself hands-on. Eventually I started to hire one person, the next person, then we had a partner marketing team that focused on all of those 3 things, but they would intermingle. So with Intuit, we would do webinars, we would do joint research, but we also had that API integration and that technology bit. And they would get paid on customers that we signed. So whoever go through the pipeline and become a customer of Guideline, Intuit would get a kickback. And then the partnership actually had various levers baked into the contract, which was the strategy and the genius of the strategic partnerships team, to say that, like, hey, if you sign X amount of customers, you get this, but if you sign more customers, you get more money. So there are levers to kind of continue to co-market and continue to grow and create shared value, both for the customers and for the companies themselves as well. So in that sense, right, like, you have all three bucketed into one relationship. That was the Intuit relationship, but there were other payroll providers and other partners that wouldn't do all three. For instance, they might not have the resources to do the full API integration, but they might want to do some co-marketing. Or they would say, hey, Guideline, you're a retirement expert. We are running payroll. We're maybe a smaller company that is running payroll. We'd love to take some of your research. We'd love to take some of your content. We'll send it out to our customers, but we can't do the API integration. And so we'll just pass people along through the sales funnel, through sales teams, just kind of passing along leads and doing like that handshake, or even through an email funnel and a landing page that doesn't have that API integration. So there were different flavors. I think it just depends. So I think that experience shifted my mental model of partnerships and made me a believer because I've never had such incredible experience with a partnership channel being such a huge lever of growth. For scale, 80% of the leads first of all, 100% of the leads were driven by marketing at Guideline. 80% of those leads came in through partnerships. Of those, there were some segments that could convert as much as 70% of the leads coming in. Now, that is so incredibly efficient and effective. And if you think about it, right, you put in a lot of work to integrate, to do all the co-marketing or referrals or whatever, right, whatever channel, whatever segments you would say within the partner marketing umbrella. But the partner would get paid on signed plans. So you're not even paying for lead acquisition. You're paying for actual revenue.
Yeah. It is such an incredible how big partnership can drive from a business impact. You know, like as a gross marketer, I always think about, like how many new opportunities and leads that I can drive is like, just doing one more ad or just doing one more article. Is like a lot of it is like a day-to-day, lots of hard work every single day, versus a partnership. Yes, you have a lot of upfront investment. It takes a while to get to it, but the impact is long lasting, and it can be very scalable and a large volume. How do you go ahead.
Absolutely. But I kind of think it's important to think about the life cycle of a partnership, because I feel like the curve, if I were to draw it, is sort of like, to your point, like the first, it kind of goes up, and that's the investment that you put in up front, and you start to get some leads trickle in as you're doing that pilot with a larger company or some co-marketing or whatever. Then, when things go well and you've signed all your agreements, it kind of goes up. And in the example of Intuit and the partnership that I launched, we 2x the lead volume. That was insane, right? And at first, those leads are all really primed and excited, and it's something new. And Intuit is sending emails, and they're sharing all those pop-ups within their product, and things are great. And you're like, oh my God, we did it. Jackpot. You raised the next round. Marketing is the hero, and strategic partnerships together with them. It's amazing. And then it kind of goes like this. And then you have to do a lot of other work to continue to keep that momentum, right? And that's when a lot of those other growth strategies start to sort of happen to keep that curve up. as well as the strategic partnerships team kind of going across the organization and making sure that all of those leads for the customers are serviced well. The NPS scores are high. You have your regular quarterly QBRs where you reflect on the shared value for the business, reflect on how the customers are doing, but also from a marketing perspective, present all of your campaigns that you could be running and whatever is happening within your specific industry life cycle. In the case of retirement, you have a cyclical, like taxes are happening, and then there is a thing called safe harbor where you have to sign up for a particular type of plan by a certain point in the year. Again, all of those are unique to whatever industry you're in. But that continuous kind of re-engagement, remarketing both to your partner so that then they can agree to market to their customers so that then you can convert more folks into your funnel. That's the work that partner marketing together with strategic partnerships end up doing on the regular to make sure that your curve kind of keeps going up and versus kind of fall off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that actually answers Sabrina's question about what is the best way to ensure partners are highly committed and driving revenue your way. Any tips to share? So what I'm hearing is, almost like a quarterly check-in to confirm the value that's driven for both sides, and continue to engage on an ongoing basis on marketing activities and go to market. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, what's important in that shared value is to make sure you are staying very data driven, right? You're talking about dollars and cents, and you're talking about the funnel. And then you're also looking at, if you do have that API integration, you're looking at how well is that API doing? Are there any issues on the technical side? You're thinking about how to optimize your landing pages that you control as like in the case of Guideline and Intuit, there was an in-product tab within Intuit that Guideline couldn't control, but then there were all the landing pages afterwards that Guideline did control. So are you doing, all your usual marketing levers, right? Are you optimizing for clicks? Are you optimizing the traffic? Are you experimenting with your CTRs? What are you doing within the rest of that funnel? Are you continuously doing your email lifecycle drips for the folks that are going through the sign-up flow? If you do have a sign-up flow, are you doing all of those well, and are you optimizing that? If you're handing those leads over to sales, are you constantly optimizing their talk tracks? Are you listening to the gong calls for that specific partner? And are you learning anything? That cross-pollination and constant optimization applies within those partner channels. I would just think about those partner channels as sort of a flavor, like a segment of your customers, and you get to customize those based on the value prop of whatever kind of partner they're coming from. Because if you think about it, they are primed because they've spent a bunch of time within your partner ecosystem. So if you can bring any of those messaging points, and if you can do any research with that partner to understand what resonates for them, coming from the partner ecosystem into your ecosystem, you can bring those nuggets back in there, you'll be more successful.
Right. And you mentioned previously you measure by revenue, not acquisition. Did you mean like from a sort of partnership arrangement perspective, you pay partner per, like do you pay partner per new customer sign up, or is it by like the actual revenue that this customer contribute to your bottom line?
So it depends on how you structure the contract, right? At Guideline, there were partnerships that ended up paying on both. And then there were levers that would say, hey, because I mean, ultimately, as if you think about that problem statement from both your perspective and the customer, right? Both and the partner, both entities would want to have stickier customers and would want to just make more revenue over the long haul. And how do you do that? You keep the customer happy, you keep them resubscribing and re-engaging in your product. And then as a partner, you're like, well, you're still making money off of those people that I sent you. So can I get some money as well? Right. So And as a partner of theirs, you're like, great, yeah, let's figure out how we structure that, because then both of us are happy, and then you're going to want to send me more people. But I think it depends. It depends on how you structure the contract. And that's, again, where the strategic partnerships team, if you are lucky enough to have one, they can do jujitsu on all those contracts and set that up. If not, then as a marketer or a business development person, maybe you can do that. But it just depends on how what you have inside your organization and who can do the work.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is it could be a combination of, the number of customers acquired and a percentage of the revenue driven, or is like one of each, or there could be some other like ways to incentivize.
Correct. It just depends on how you structure that contract, and really the people that are negotiating the contract on either end, how good they are at negotiation.
Yeah. Master negotiator needed. We talked about how important marketing, like a partner marketing is. When should startups think about doing partner marketing? What are the key elements that needs to be ready before they think about partner marketing?
My perspective is your product needs to be working. Well, let me take a step back. It depends on whether you're going to do all of it, sign customers together and get them live on your platform, or if you're just starting to test the waters. If you want to do the whole thing and get customers signed up on your platform, you need to make sure that your product is working and you have customers live, that you can service those customers well. And if you're measuring NPS already, ideally you are, then that you get, you have high NPS scores, or at least you're starting to think about how to put in the necessary levers to be able to measure NPS. And three, you are ready to have, have some resources dedicated to this channel, right? Because as soon as you start engaging, you need to be able to kind of go all the way. Otherwise, you're not going to see value, right? Just sending some leads through the door if you're not planning to nurture them, or if your sales team is not primed to be able to sell to them, or if you don't have a self-sign flow that can be customized for that partner, you're just not going to see as much value. But that goes for any marketing funnel. So that's if you want to do the full partner marketing customer acquisition. If you want to just start to test the waters and say your product isn't fully there, you're still playing around with PMF, then you can do that beginning layer of like co-marketing. You can maybe attempt to do an event as you research your target audience and you see, hey, I work with accountants, and accountants do a lot of things within payroll. Let me go talk to folks in payroll and see if we can do something together with maybe a smaller company. Probably not going to get much leverage with a larger company because they're busy and they already have established partnerships, but maybe with somebody earlier on that's sort of similar stage. But to answer your initial question, as soon as you have a more defined target audience, you should already start to think about how to partner around them and how to start building those relationships so that you can capitalize on them later. And once you have product market fit, your product is working, you have the ability to build those lead capture, customer capture funnels, then just go at it. And I would almost invest more time and money in that if you have really great partnerships around, or really great partner system around your customer. I would invest in that because, again, as in the case and in my experience, it can prove to be a really, really ROI positive way to drive customers to sign up.
This is really great. I have a quick follow-up on sort of selecting or like a big or small partners. I would imagine as a startup, imagine I'm a retirement plan provider of sorts. I can go to the Gusto, Intuits of the world and like a bigger partners, and I know that will drive volume. Or I can go to, a list of 10,000 accountants who can refer folks to me. I would imagine, cycle is different, but the effort is also could be different, because like if I'm reaching out to 100,000 accountants, then I probably need some sort of automation or team to negotiate individual deals. Or is there a scalable way to do that? Or like, as a company, how do you think about like going after bigger partners versus small partners? And is there a way to sort of make the process automated or efficient?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll give you a direct example of kind of how we did it at Guideline, because I worked on the beginning of the accountant partnership work as well before I was able to hire and scale a team. So for me, again, as a core PMM, it starts with researching your end customer and segmenting them into these buckets. And of course, the larger firms, right, your large accounting firms, they're not going to want to go in and make a deal right away. They have a lot of other things that they have going on. But sole props and smaller accountants, you have to, and there's quite a few of them, you have to see where they hang out. And what's interesting about accountants specifically is they actually hang out within payroll ecosystems. And Intuit, Gusto, ADP, all of those payroll providers, they have built actual portals for accountants. They've built products for accountants because accountants are their target audience as well. So that is an idea like where you already have a partnership, and then you can expand that partnership into the rest of the ecosystem of your partner and start to figure out how to do things with accountants. So one really efficient way to launch that we launched Guideline was to do a webinar for accountants that was part of Intuit. So they run these, I don't remember how frequently they run these now, but they run almost monthly webinars for accountants, telling them about all the new features and things that are happening within QuickBooks, and Guideline was featured there. And we did a whole webinar to talk about new product, when you need to think about retirement deductions, when's a good time, how does it fit into the accounting ecosystem. And accountants were actually thrilled because what we found out is they don't really know much about retirement. So it starts with that element of education. Then you look at, where they hang out, and they have portals within your payroll providers. So then you start to create pop-ups and get into that experience within your partner. So that's one way to do it. The other way, of course, is, so it's very efficient and effective, right? Because you get right into their workflow. And to me, that's ideal. The other ways to do that is show up at their conferences. We used to go to the Gusto Next conference and Guideline. I remember that was like my first conference post-COVID, and actually accountants love to party. They love to dance, as it turns out. The job may be a lot of numbers, but they like to have fun afterwards. So showing up at those conferences, having those conversations, showing off your product really works. But to me, the number one efficient and effective way is to show up in their workflow, because you're right there when they're primed to do their work. The other way is then, where else are they getting their education? Something else that we did was we would sponsor various classes provided by accreditation institutions. And we would create both content within those accreditation institutions that is focused on retirement, so accountants could learn, as well as sponsor the content that they were already signed up to do as part of their accreditation, because they have to continuously reacquire knowledge as rules and things change. So zooming out of the accountant land, you just think about, again, where's your customer hanging out? Who are those partners and influencers that they make decisions with in regards to your product? And then how can you get to them? Where do they hang out? And what's the most efficient way to get to them? Ideally, it's a non-intrusive way to jump into their workflow that they're doing already. So that technology bit and the partnership. And then after that, how do you get into either their continued education or publications that they're reading or conferences that they go to?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Are there tools or platforms to do partner marketing? Like a tech stack wise, I know, Crossbeam, for example, for B2B, you can share leads in a privacy first way. And there's a partner stack who's more of a referral partnership and commission. And then of course there's tons of more like a traditional B2C type of affiliate networks and commission junction and such. Like what tools do you use, or like platforms do you use?
So Guideline, we were very we were really lean on tools. The one core thing that we did use was Zapier to connect all the APIs to make sure we could track the leads. And then you would just use the same tools that you do for all of your other customer segments, because these partner leads just become a segmented, just part of your customer segment. You just follow them the same way you would follow any other segments. You just want to make sure that you're tracking them well. So just your regular tools. And then the analytics team would run regular queries, make sure that they identify the partner leads and do the payout accurately through finance for the leads that signed up, so you can kind of make sure that you pay on the agreements that you have in place. But for more like referral marketing and partnerships, and that way, yeah, absolutely. When you're setting them up, then you can do that. We actually, at Guideline, we actually explored quite a few of those referral tools for accountants. And what's really interesting is we learned, and again, this is very specific, why I think partner marketing should be a subset of product marketing. It's very specific to the particular type of partner you're working with. After doing quite a bit of research on accountants, we learned that they actually feel terrible getting a financial kickback on selling products, because they felt that they're actually compromising their direct relationship with their clients. They don't want to be a reseller. But what we also learned, again, through data analysis, is that a lot of there was actually a healthy and ever-growing segment of actual accountants that were signing up for retirement within Guideline themselves, because accountants know dollars and cents, and they realize it really makes sense for them to offer retirement for the tax shelter and the impact on their taxes. And just because they're like, well, we should save for retirement as well, and it's cost effective and efficient. They thought it wasn't before. So within that, we actually realized that instead of giving them a financial kickback, and we experimented with different numbers and did a lot of testing there, what they actually really preferred was getting months free off of their Guideline subscription.
Oh, their own personal Guideline subscription versus getting like a monetary kickback.
Yeah. And if they don't have a subscription already, then you can kind of sell both to the accountant as well as to their end customers. And what we also learned is acquiring accountants onto the platform was a multiple of your clients, right? Because for each accountant that signs up to have their own retirement provider, then they end up bringing an average of 3 businesses from their book of business onto the platform. So eventually accountants ended up being actually an even more profitable customer segment, because they were a multiplier. Then you just have to figure out how to do things on the back end, depending on how you do that in your accounting and billing system, internal, to give them the months free.
That's brilliant. A follow-up on the big partner versus small partner piece. Amirin asked, if you're a small player, right, especially sort of earlier stage, there could be asymmetry between the size or really the power, the command of the partnership. If you're a smaller startup and negotiating with a more established company, you don't have a lot of writing on this partnership. What insights do you have on getting the larger partner to lean in?
The insight is that as a small partner, you have to think about what you're truly good at and what your strengths are. You must be an expert in something because you've built a business around that, so you can leverage that. Your larger partner, while they have more customers and make more money, they don't understand the things that you understand. But if you've researched the partnership and the shared value well enough, there's that overlap in the Venn diagram. And so they kind of want what you know. And that is your leverage. You can start to explain right, education and delivering that to their end customers and their partners. And then the shared value. So even though you're small, you're mighty within your own area of excellence. And that's what you can offer. And then how to do that sort of more of a land and expand strategy is you start, because you are small, you start small. So in the case of Singterra, we started on an event to talk about compliance. And Singterra is both in Canada as well as in the US. And Gusto wanted to do more business in Canada, where Singterra had a lot of senior leadership in Canada. So we leveraged that. We leveraged the CTO as well as the Chief Compliance Officer in Canada within that expertise that Gusto doesn't have. To do the event, to carry the event from a particular cloud of those folks. And Gusto joined, and they are offering up, this event is actually happening soon. They're offering up their chief design officer, but they don't have the technical and the compliance expertise. So that's an example of, you think about your area of excellence, you think about your expertise, you have those folks on the team, you leverage them for what's interesting to your larger partner. And then the shared brand cloud sort of starts to lift that up. And then eventually what you hope for is you can market to the same client base and share and do referrals of leads and, grow your business together.
That's a great point. It's think about what's your unique value prop and what do you have that the other person doesn't have, regardless of price. Like, yes, maybe what you're missing is the size or the power, but what you have is knowledge and expertise. And access, like a unique access, whether it's like a regional or type of audience, and probably like a connection and a community. So like think about the unique things that bigger partners don't have that you have, and use that as leverage. That's a great point. Yeah. And let's say like you established these partnerships for a while, and sort of like at some point value started to go down, or maybe they have some more partners who do similar things, or they have a change of like an internal champion, or for whatever reason the partnership is seems to not be delivering. Sabrina asks is what do you do then?
You get creative and you think, you kind of go back to the drawing board and you think about what you can leverage. And that actually effectively happens in the case of the partner life cycle, right? As I kind of drew in the air that Venn diagram, that chart, sort of like you kind of go up and then you're kind of at a high for a while and then it starts to falter. And then you start to think about what campaigns, what channels can you leverage. So I'll go over a couple of tactics that I've used. That's when you sort of go back to your regular growth tactics and you start to do advertisement on those leads that maybe haven't confirmed within your partner ecosystem, that haven't signed up within your partner ecosystem, to raise brand awareness and drive them back into the funnel. At that point, you also have a bunch of leads, and you may not have converted all of them. So you start to run lifecycle campaigns, and maybe you connect those campaigns together with your top of funnel work. So you start to do that. And then you think about, again, within your area of excellence, within your unique value prop, what else is happening in your ecosystem? Are there any events? Is there any new government regulation that you want to talk about? Is there anything new that you can entice your partner with to continue to leverage and create campaigns? So one really good example in the case of Guideline was state mandates. There's a rolling wave of state mandates that require folks to have a retirement. So in California, I believe that if you have a business of 5 employees or more, you are now required by law to have a retirement plan for them, else you're going to pay penalties come tax time. And, payroll providers may not know about that. Their customers may not know about that. So you get to run campaigns and do that kind of education for their customers. One thing that we did at Guideline was we actually ran an out-of-home campaign. So, right, like one of the most labor-intensive growth tactics, but it was ahead of all these state mandates because we did research and surveyed a bunch of small business owners in California, and we learned that majority of them are not aware of the fact that they're going to pay penalties for not providing retirement for their employees. And so kind of getting ahead of that knowledge, running that out of home campaign that we ran that at the end of 22, you're sort of both delivering something valuable to your end customer, knowledge that, hey, you're going to pay penalties, but you're also starting to raise your brand awareness. Like, you're the first one to talk about that. So that's an example of something that's already happening within the ecosystem, but it goes back to understanding your customer, understand what's happening in their ecosystem, understanding their pain points, and then leveraging the solution to those pain points so that you can provide value.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, the government policies is always a great entry point.
Absolutely. I call that government tailwinds. Sometimes the government does give your product tailwinds. Sometimes it, slaps you in the face, but ideally you're in an industry where it doesn't.
Right. Yeah. If I think about like cybersecurity or some of the industries, it is very effective in using regulations and privacy acts and such to sell and cater to not only the business value but also like the emotional reaction when there's a policy change and requirement.
And you hit on a really interesting point. So it's emotional reaction, but it also gives you an opportunity, right? You as a business owner can end up paying a penalty, but you also have an opportunity to be offering a value to your employees. So you can be the hero for them, even though you have to do it anyway. So it depends then on how you structure your messaging. And again, I'm a huge proponent of always researching and verifying with your end target audience. And at Guideline, before we ran the out-of-home campaign, we actually did a bunch of research on Suzy. It's a research platform. There are many, but I really love that one because you can get very targeted and you can actually put up imagery and run a study and get reactions to your messaging. And we actually changed the campaign to focus more on end customer. Initially, the campaign was focused on, hey, penalties, but we softened the messaging to talk about, hey, penalties, but also opportunity to do something good for your team, because that resonated more, that sort of more value-driven approach.
Mm-hmm. Using the crisis as an opportunity.
Correct.
Yeah, that's great. What mistakes do you see people make in establishing partnerships? What not to do, and what are the pitfalls that you should avoid, or what advice do you have for founders and marketers to do more or less in terms of partnership?
Less is more. I know it sounds like a cliche, but I think it really works in this case. If you're a smaller company and you're starting to explore partnership with a larger company, they're not going to come in and start to want to sign a contract with you, even if there's a really clear shared value proposition. They're first going to want to test into how it is to work with you and look at like really low stakes ways to do that. So the example I gave of a co-marketing event with Guideline and Singterra, that's a super low stakes way to do that. You're putting down some events budget and some folks' time and maybe some travel, but you get to see how that relationship works. And if that's successful, you could do more and you could do more and you can do more. In the example of the Intuit partnership, there was a pilot that ran for a while because it was a deep API integration. But the pilot went to a small subsegment of the customers. And so you prove that you can treat those customers well, that the value is there, that the NPS scores are there before you go big. So you essentially have to sort of start small, pilot your way with a smaller, lower stakes program or a smaller subsegment before you can kind of go big. And even though it feels like a bit of a crawl, walk, run approach, but the end result can be really powerful. And you're also learning more about your business along the way. As an earlier stage company, you might not be able to service all those customers. So it is a benefit for you as well. You don't want to open up the floodgates and then fold because you can't support them from a CS perspective. So it actually really, even though you might be chasing that revenue at the end of the rainbow, you should still really kind of start to crawl and walk your way into it before you run after the pot of gold.
Mm-hmm. That's a great. As you were talking, I'm actually curious. Right? Like, no one went to school for partner marketing. How did you see people who work on partner marketing start, or what kind of background do they have, or like, is it literally let's try something and learn from it, or like, how do you think about finding good partner marketing people or becoming one of them?
To me, I think partner marketing should grow out of product marketing, but I may be biased because that's my sort of marketing major is product marketing. But I really think as a marketer, and I think about kind of how I started as a marketer, I didn't go to school for marketing either. I was actually going to be a lawyer. And I majored
So much more fun.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I majored in international relations with heavy emphasis on anthropology. But for me, what was interesting is the study of people and how they do things and what do they do in their ecosystem, whether they're a native tribe in the Amazon or they're an accountant trying to figure out how to save on taxes for their client. They still have certain practices and they have a certain rhythm and a flow and a thing that they do. And so if you've observed them in the wild or in their QuickBooks, right, where they do the things, you learn things about their flow. You learn things about how they ingest information, what they respond to. So to me, it's about the curiosity about your customer, their ecosystem, their rhythms and operations and their pain points. And then what can you do? What can you provide of value? And then the next step in the partner land is of shared value that can create more better experience and revenue for both sides. So for me, in an earlier stage company, I think it starts within product marketing. But at Guideline, partner marketing was established before I joined because the founders actually had the insight of partnering with Gusto early on, and the two companies sort of grew together. So I think it actually goes back to the founders really deeply understanding their customer. Also, again, being super curious about what their customer does and what their pain points are, and then thinking about what they can do around that customer. Both Guideline and Gusto sort of grew together. They had an exclusive partnership for Guideline to be the exclusive partner for a long time to Gusto and their end customers. And actually the early Guideline customers didn't know that they were Guideline customers. They actually thought they were getting a Gusto retirement plan because the two were so intertwined. They were like, cool, I signed up for payroll. I ran my payroll. Okay, now I'm going to click a button here. I'm going to go do retirement. Cool, I got that set up and the integration is seamless and I can just do both and I'm good. So I think that's the genius really in it is understanding, always goes back to understanding your customer and then creating as easy of an experience and a process for them and a shared value for you and your partner.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And Shu Yang asked the question, like, what are the differences between B2B and B2C partnerships? I would imagine there are probably some like the type difference, right? Like if for B2C, you probably work with a lot of influencers or referrals or affiliate partnerships that's more scaled versus a B2B, you do more of these like, I would imagine like either like a distribution channel, like API or technology partnerships is like a little bit more substantial. But I can also see B2B partnerships, especially if it's a PLG company that does some of the very similar B2C sort of partnership types. What's your thoughts around this topic?
Yeah, absolutely. And the one core difference is, right, like you don't have sales in the middle of it, or you may not. Again, if you have a self-sign flow in a B2B situation, sales, you may have like a sales assist, but sales basically, B2C realm, like it just doesn't exist. It doesn't play a role. But what does play a role is a partnerships team that will sign all those agreements. During my time at Nickelodeon Kids and Family, we actually did a lot of partnership work. So I ran marketing for Shockwave.com, specifically kind of advertising all the games on Shockwave, the game platform. If you remember that, you can just go online and play games. You still can. But what we did, because we were a media company, is we did a bunch of co-branded and co-marketing partnerships with large entities. So for instance, big movies coming out, to promote the movie ahead of time, you could create a game with all the characters animated. And that you can run that across all of your different MTV portals as well. So now imagine you're within a large company and the movie, whoever the movie entity is, they come to MTV networks and they're like, how do we create this? How do we promote this product on your platform? How do we create shared value? And the shared value would be in the customer experience. So you create a game where you can actually be those characters and play those characters ahead of the movie and get excited about that. And then you can kind of give the movie studio a promotional package where like, hey, we create a game as one of those, but then we're going to advertise them on all these other properties so people go play the game and get the eyeballs. And you kind of essentially have all your advertising units, and then you have your experiential piece. And the partner pays for that. And then as an end property, right, for Nickelodeon Kids and Family, well, hey, you have content, you have properties, you are also kind of elevating yourself by having something new versus having your same tried and true games that people get really sick of quickly.
As we were talking today, like the biggest learning is like partnership can be really creative. You need to be really creative in thinking about the various ways to partner with various players. What's the final sort of takeaway or words of wisdom you wanna talk about partner marketing?
I just wanted to not be that like redheaded stepchild, because it is incredibly creative. And it all goes back to your customer. At the end of the day, if you can figure out how to deliver value to your customer sooner and how to deliver your expertise, you as a company, how to deliver your unique expertise in your area of excellence to your ecosystem, then go do that. And figure out creative ways to do that. It can sometimes fall into those 3 predefined buckets that people generally think about, but feel free to color outside the lines as long as it makes sense for your customer and their ecosystem. Because at the end of the day, what you want to do through your marketing is just provide value. And your partner ecosystem is a really good channel for that, and it's a very direct channel.
Amazing, Yelena. Thank you so much for all the amazing insights. And please connect with Yelena on LinkedIn and find her online. She is such an expert on partner marketing. And thank you, Yelena, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for these great questions. And thanks to everyone who was listening. Really appreciate it. It was really fun.